and welcome back to the rewatch and review party of the Stargate franchise. Currently, the episodes are still just reviewed by me, myself, and I, but I, for one, am mightily interested in what all of y'all think about the following. So let's get started. First off, I wanted to share a happy new discovery for the ones that are not able to see Stargate SG-1 on any platform other than Amazon Prime. I found that the dailymotion.com/video also allows you to watch the Stargate episodes online for free. The link to that I will upload into my link tree. You are welcome. Moving on. This episode was written by Jeff King, directed by Jimmy Kaufman, and the original air date was February 13th, 1998. In this Tin Man episode, the 19th of the first season, we are introduced to the actor Jay Brazeau, I don't know, as the character Harlan. Spoiler, the lone survivor of Altair, or as we Earthlings have designated the planet P3X989. Jay Brazeau also appears later on in one of the Atlantis episodes, but as a different character though. Mr. Brazeau is a Canadian actor with the nickname The Braz. And his nicknames go nice. Me likey. He has just such a kind, gentle, perky, especially in this episode, demeanor. In this episode, I like O'Neill's opening when they arrive on the planet through the gate, as O'Neill says, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your Colonel speaking. Welcome to P3X989er, where it is a balmy room temperature." Upon their arrival, they do notice that the technology seems advanced, yet old as in in need of repairs. Important to note, though, of course, is that it's not go-old technology, so they don't immediately feel threatened or the need to abort mission or hit that escape button or escape. Sorry, couldn't resist. Though I do really love that they say, "Oh, this is really advanced technology." And then Carter, of course, finds the computers, and they are very clearly the computer screens that we used in the 90s. But yeah, especially now looking at this from a 2025 perspective, oh, we've come a long way. Next, I gotta add a little warning for the viewers that use Amazon Prime. And yeah, I finally got Prime. I went over to the dark side. What can I say? I immediately binged The Boys, and I do recommend that is for another series of maybe future podcast review episodes. So for now, moving on that subject, there are definite spoilers in the X-ray tab with this next scene. If you see this episode for the very first time, this is a crucial plot twist, I think you could say, that becomes shockingly, and then I do mean like, whoa, drastic, okay, kind of shocking a little later on in the episode, which really is a shame because it was good in all of its drastic, shocking, what the actual fuck are you doing? What kind of moment? And we don't get those often. I have been known to, on occasion, predict almost verbatim what's going to be said or happen. So the moments where even I'm caught off guard, don't ruin it. But that's just, me being a little pouty. But also a little girl standing in front of whoever writes the X-rays, asking you not to ruin it, because these are the very few fun, shockingly plot twisty moments that made me really invested. I mean, in The Boys, I really loved it. It was very educational, interesting, relevant, additional information, which I think was the point of the X-ray tab. But in this case, when you start spoiling shit, but basically, these are the moments we viewers live for. Please don't ruin it. I like your due diligence, Amazon. In this case, spoilers. Not nice. In this next scene, they awaken all in different outfits, and okay, right about now, I'd be feeling pretty violated already, but I guess that's just me. As for now, no one mentions it. If anything, it's the opposite. I mean, when O'Neill asks his team members how they're doing, Jackson actually, it is foreshadowing, but responds with that he feels better than fine. Still, no one apparently feels violated? Okay, it's me being all sensitive again, I guess. Right around this time, in comes Lynn with his perky greeting of Comtraya. I like how O'Neill looks seriously uncomfortable and immediately checks in with Daniel instead of responding to Harlan, who basically walks up to him and asking Daniel what it could possibly mean. I don't necessarily think we needed a linguist to deduce the meaning of this one, but okay. And lo and behold, Harlan once again speaks perfect English by answering, "Yes, it is." Greeting, that is. Dry humor in this episode, I love it. This is then followed up with Daniel trying to shake Harlan's hand, and Harlan responds all enthusiastically, "This is your custom, yes?" And he also shoves his hand out, thinking that that is the customary greeting, which just makes you realize how conditioned we all actually are. That as someone sticks out their hand, we are conditioned conditioned to grab that hand and shake it. Well, regular folks are, that is. I mean, personally, I could go without. Honestly, during the pandemic, I was happy that the handshakes were, at least temporarily, a thing of the past. I was all for bringing back the curtsy and the bow, but alas, we're once again shaking it up all over the place. And I noticed it really is a conditioned behavior because I didn't intend to fall back into that, but just as soon as someone sticks out their hand, I automatically grabbed it. And the first few times I did that, I was like, wait, what? And now I've just kind of surrendered to it, that this is just considered the customary greeting in our society. What do y'all think about that? Anyone all for the handshake? Some other people joining me here on the curtsy and bowing side? Do share your thoughts and feelings in the comments. With O'Neill deferring to Daniel, it makes sense that Harlan now thinks that Jackson is the one in charge. However, O'Neill quickly corrects Harlan by introducing himself as Colonel Jack O'Neill, Kumbaya, which I love. It makes me giggle every single time. It's these little O'Neillisms, as I love to call them, and basically reaffirms why I love Jack O'Neill. It's my kind of humor. Who's with me? Harlan, even as cute but tooty as he is, corrects him saying it's Kumtraya, and O'Neill just responds with whatever. It's like he's trying, but then he's also, yeah, that's far enough. Some could label it as assholey behavior, but I actually quite appreciate this, because someone shows that they're willing to make an effort, but they do stay true to who they authentically are. As in, at least the way I see it. He cares and he tries to make an effort, but in the grand scheme of things, does it really matter? No. So why bother? Also true to O'Neill form is that he immediately goes on the defensive asking Harlan why he attacked them. And I very much like it that Harlan then acknowledges that it might appear that way from their perspective, showing some real emotional maturity there. He just straight up goes and says, yep, I did that. Very unlike Urkel with his, did I do that? I did that. I fully understand that that is how you perceive it to be. Can appreciate that in a person. When someone says you are all such wonderful specimens, you in particular, a female, like how is that response ever not creepy? Therefore, I do very much appreciate Carter gets seemingly ready to punch Harlan, and I mean, you go girl. And she asks permission from her superior officer, who does not brush it off, but instead just tells her, easy captain. I mean, he acknowledges that what Harlan was saying, specifically to her, is weird, but that he also wants to see where this is going before immediately resorting to violence, which, from a man to a woman, would actually be interesting, or interesting as in that's not usually how we see it. It's usually the woman calming the man down, because in men that kind of behavior is normalized. So therefore, that they flipped that script, I liked. It's very clear early on that Carter is not a fan of our perky, giggly little Harlan, as they learn that he is the lone survivor on the planet, which then I guess could sort of explain his elation at a female specimen, I guess. That said, she is totally justified in feeling creeped out. I mean, yeah, same. Ladies, remarks like that are red flags. It doesn't mean that the entire person is necessarily bad, which, again, I don't think Harlan has any. It's a PG-rated show, but okay. So many other scenarios come to mind that are not as innocent as they try to portray this one, but that's just my fucked up brain. What was my point? Like, maybe call it an orange flag or something? These kind of remarks puts me on high alert, and I have since learned that I have a certain I want to say unhealthy, but it's not unhealthy. It's cautious, which is not necessarily unhealthy in this society. Inflated? I think that's a better descriptor for it. I have an inflated distrust, particularly of men, for a good reason. But yeah, let's call it an orange flag. Ooh, yellow flag? I don't like oranges now. Totally associated with schmuckety-mo. It's a cautionary flag? We call it that? Like, what would you give a cautionary flag for color? Yellow? Maybe? I don't know. Well, I mean, signs are yellow, right? The alarm, the thingamabob with the triangle, the exit, the danger. That's yellow. Let's go with yellow. There, I resolved it. What do y'all think? Cautionary flag? What kind of color? And it's totally off topic. My apologies. This is what I do. As I've learned, some people love it, some people don't, but I'm cool with that. You know, if you don't love it, you don't have to be here. You don't have to listen to all my ramblings. Some people dig me, some people don't. I'm cool with it. Just, if you don't dig me, don't follow me. Don't listen to me. Talk to me. But if you're curious and you appreciate whatever it is I'm doing here, by all means, reach out. Come share. Sharing and caring is what it's all about. We try. Yeah, sorry. Back to Stargate. Next, we see his peculiar, slightly adorable hand gesture as he introduces himself to the team members. And as a kid, after seeing this episode, I immediately tried to replicate that. Is that just me, or do other people do that? It's the same when people say, like, you can't lick your elbow. Immediately, you feel the urge to try it. And yes, no, you can't. Or not. If you're not overly flexible, I suppose. I can assume that some people with very bendy limbs could possibly do that. But in the general population, that's a particular skill. There's another skill that I'm thinking of, but let's not go into that one. That not a lot of people can do. And warning, yes, I was thinking about autofellatio. If you don't know what that is, Google it. Now back to our regularly scheduled PG-rated content. Harlan shares that the surface is uninhabitable due to radiation. That sentence always hit a little home for me. Immediately thinking, like, that is still possible. Just imagine that even in the 90s I thought this, but especially now, that could actually be a future for us. Sure, let's not dwell. Daniel asks how long Harlan has been alone, picking up on his peculiar, one could say, mental state, no doubt. And here comes a second Easter egg. When Harlan tells him that the creator Hubble of all of this that they see died 99,207,000 of our hours ago, surprisingly, it's then O'Neill that knows immediately that that is 11,000 years. And, I mean, not to be an asshole or nothing, but weren't we kind of all shocked that he knew that? Carter even seems slightly offended, as in, like, you are not the only smarty pants in this outfit at this moment, little lady, just so you know. And even though Harlan says it's not safe and that they will be back, if ever there was an ominous prediction to be had, he also says that they can't leave him there all alone, which kind of pulls at the heartstrings. And here, actually, for a second there, felt a little bad for him. Let's just imagine that you've been alone for 11,000 years. I mean, with the whole Castaway movie, he was alone for what, like a week before he created Wilson as his companion? We are social beings, people. We need companionship. Back on Earth in the infirmary, Dr. Fraser is remarkably calm when she says that she's a little worried as O'Neill doesn't seem to have a heartbeat. Understatement much? I mean, I get you're a doctor, but that's a little too much of a cold cucumber attitude if you ask me, if you are having a conversation with someone that doesn't have a heartbeat. As she goes in for a blood sample, white goo seems to come out of his arm, and Tilk only now seems to discover that his gold symbiote is gone, and he has just plain old, well, not plain or old, abs. And before we know it, O'Neill goes all Terminator as he grabs a scalpel, slicing open his forearm. Hello! I'm surprised that Carter is the only one exclaiming, "What are you doing?" Like, a bit drastic? No? Going full, well, Terminator on your own arm to see what's inside? Once she sees the mechanics inside O'Neill's arm, Dr. Fraser finally seems to have arrived at Panic Station and alerts security, backing away in fear from Daniel as he tries to reassure her that they are still them. You sure about that, honey bunny? Did you not just see what we saw? Hammond comes in and seems unsure, so he orders them to be taken to the holding room. Meanwhile, all I kept seeing now was Tilk skulking in the background, and that again was kind of an Easter egg, I suppose, because I know where this is going. But for someone who does not know where this episode is going, note that that is interesting behavior, even from our little Tilky, our stoic Mr. Extraordinaire. Meanwhile, O'Neill tries to convince Hammond that they are themselves by giving us some backstory on our general. Win-win. A little side note. Why is it always Kayla, and sometimes Michaela, but hardly ever Layla? In my not so humble opinion, the name Layla is just better, in the words of Harlan. But, of course, I'm biased on the subject, I do know that. But as we're talking about one being better than the other, in our humble opinion, not so humble opinion, what can I say? I saw an opportunity and I seized it. There's your first flushed away movie reference in this podcast review episode, if not your last. Oh, that movie has gems too, my friends. Oh, love it. Anywho, despite O'Neill knowing these intimate details about his life, Hammond is still big bald, bald, pun intended, as he orders them to cooperate or be met with deadly force. Well then, I love how commanding Donis Davis can be. While still showing that he's clearly unnerved by the proceedings, he also remains firm and, well, like I said, big bald, big cojones. Ah, such a great actor. You are missed, my good sir. Dr. Fraser and General Hammond are unsure what to do with the impersonators, given what we've seen with Cassandra. Understandably, Fraser wants them out away from the gate ASAP. Now, interestingly enough, this concern never reappears in this episode and just seems to be forgotten or dismissed. It strikes me as interesting that Daniel doesn't seem freaked out at all. If anything, he seems slightly mesmerized and even intrigued, and wonders why Harlan didn't just tell them. I do so very much love Carter's comeback, for she was already contemplating violence on his creepo vibe towards her in particular. She now believes Harlan didn't just come out and tell them out of fear they'd damage him. And yeah, clearly O'Neill's on the same page now as he responds with perceptive little runt. Yeah, understatement. It's only now, when Carter and O'Neill are talking, that Tilk is noticeably acting odd. I mean, it would make some sense. He no longer has a go old. We already learned that he needs that for his survival. But it is interesting and actually quite nice that it's Daniel that seems to notice that Tilk is more silent and pensive than his usual stoic countenance. Though that observation quickly gets shoved to the background, as O'Neill now realizes that they are no longer human, so therefore they also don't have any rights. Which is a scary thought, but accurate. It's also only now that Daniel seems to realize that Harlan himself must be a robot, and I guess that information kind of got lost due to the fact that he was alone for 11,000 years. Suddenly, the team starts to feel unwell or drained, which always reminds me, or now reminds me, of that scene in, once again, a Flesh to Ray reference of "Tell Mom I love her," which always makes me laugh. They don't say that in this episode, but it's clearly that their batteries are drained, quite literally. And look, once they return to the planet, all of a sudden they start to feel better. And Carter makes the obvious, though nice deduction, that their power source is presumably somewhere on that planet. Harlan did say they'd be back. When Harlan comes back, O'Neill now does resort to violence and grabs him, and Harlan, even still now with a smile, says, "You are angry. Thank you, Captain Obvious." And just O'Neill's authentic and truthful response is, "Yes." Always makes me laugh. Like I said, I thought this was a nice episode. I laughed a lot. That Harlan responds with, "You are damaging me. Not you're hurting me, but you are damaging me." As Harlan keeps maintaining that it is permanent to transfer to synthetic bodies, he tells his, at least as far as I can tell, his first lie, as he tells them that their original bodies are gone. As they go to lie down to recharge, I suppose, I liked it that it was Tilch that basically just bitch slaps them with the hard truth when he responds to O'Neill saying to condemn Harlan and Altair would also mean that they would be condemning themselves, and yeah. O'Neill's response of all we are now is robots, meaning that it's sort of a downgrade, I guess, which is so fucking ironic because it kind of seems that that's where we're going as a society with all the AI and technology and such. And I mean, Elon Musk would cream in his pants, I think, for this opportunity to be able to actually transfer consciousness to a synthetic body, meaning that he could then live forever. But that's neither here nor there. I do actually like that it's Daniel that points out that the human body technically basically is just an organic machine, but still a machine, and he's not wrong. I do like that, again, to alleviate the situation, even though O'Neill is royally pissed, that he wants to go and talk to Harlan, saying, talk to him robot to robot. I mean, the quibs in this episode, despite, the shocking realization that you're now no longer human, but a robot, you can always count on O'Neill for his O'Neillisms to bring some levity to the situation and some laughter. Although, once Carter and Daniel discuss the fact that they are neither hungry nor thirsty, that instantly made me go like, nope. I'm a Taurus ascendant with a Cancer moon. Food is my love language, people. Mama needs her snacks. Also, later, when Harlan refers to this as a gift, and I think, once again, like Elon Musk would salivate at this opportunity, it also made me think, okay, so no hunger, no thirst. What about a sex drive? And you're a robot, so you can't procreate. You can't create new life. It would only mean it's of a copy of a copy. That would get boring eventually, even after 11,000 years of only always the same kinds of people. No wonder Harlan is so happy with new entertainment. Though rather dismissive of Tilk, continually referring to him as different. And now I'm much more sensitive, I think, to that, and I think many are with me, that you can't help but notice that, yes, Tilk is different, as in, I think what was meant to refer to as he was Jaffa and Jaffas are not human, true, but also I cannot now but notice that also he's the only person of color. And no doubt the racists would agree with Harlan more given that fact than think of the fact that Tilk is different because he is Jaffa and therefore not human, than that he's an actual different color. But I do notice that now every time someone, and it happens multiple times in the show, the Tilk is referred to as different, it now also resonates with me on a different level. I wonder if other people have that too. Do share in the comments. Harlan starts to tell a little bit about their history. Apparently, after whatever happened on their planet, there were only 1,000 or so survivors. Then Hubble, the creator, started to transfer consciousness to synthetic bodies. And first, not everyone apparently survived that transfer. And also, the ones that did eventually became suicidal, which is quite profound to mention that in this episode, and I think does describe that not everyone would embrace this, the changes, and that they, especially over time, can leave people depressed and eventually maybe apparently suicidal. Another important thing to note, if we ever were to do this, the fact that the creator died once they implemented this, but they didn't all, or at least a vast majority of the people that made the transfer, possess the knowledge to maintain, to continue to evolve, to understand the technology, eventually led to Harlan remaining as a singular sole survivor, but also now the station falling apart, because to advance, maintain, you kind of sort of need the knowledge that was used to create in the first place. So a little tip to anyone ever going or trying to attempt this, make sure that once we start getting there to that point where we start transferring consciousness into different bodies or organic robotic bodies, make sure that by the time that you do that, the knowledge of how you did all that is easily accessible, if not known by the vast majority of people, so that once the creator dies, it doesn't mean that you're ultimately doomed. Interestingly, though, once the station reached critical failure, problems, whatever, and Harlan implores the team to help him, he also shares this little tidbit that apparently he downloaded all the information into their brains so that they could help him. So apparently it isn't just transferring your consciousness to that synthetic robotic body, but also he can add knowledge, which handy. Creepy, but handy. Next, a few funnies where I couldn't help but notice the ironically, though arrogantly human trait apparently transferred to the Altarians as well, where people tend to name shit after themselves with the Hubble units and such. And also, it was kind of cute that the writers thought of including that little moment where O'Neill and Daniel start exploring how they are better. As in, O'Neill does a superhero jump, which he seems to appreciate and take in stride, and then Daniel rips off a panel and basically looks at Carter like, oh my god, did you see what I just did? As in, oh my god, look, I'm strong now, yay! And then 2 seconds later, we see O'Neill just easily pop off that panel. I don't know if that was intentional, but I found that funny. Where Daniel's like, oh my god, look how strong I am, and O'Neill's like, no biggie. Things get serious though once Tilk suddenly reappears to attack O'Neill and shoves his face into a pipe. Owie! In comes Harlan for the rescue as he, quite easily, completely disintegrates Tilk, but maintains that he will be well. Obviously, Carter and Daniel don't just take that lying down. They follow Harlan and discover that he's already making a new Tilk, saying that he now understands where he went wrong, as in there were two minds in a singular body, and now apparently he can start separating them so that he won't have a completely freaked out Tilk. Which, cool. Weird, but cool. I guess those Goa'uld's violent tendencies are really ingrained in their, well, DNA. And this is where they discover that Harlan was lying because their original bodies do still exist. And with the open eyes, it's kind of unsettling. And why the gag? Seriously. Harlan does state that he fully intended to return SG-1 to Earth as soon as their replicants accepted their transference, although Carter now realizes it wasn't as much as a transference as it was just a copy-paste job. Which, on the one hand, great, because therefore their original bodies survived, yay! But also makes them now realize that they will never go back to Earth because they didn't originate on Earth, which is a bit of a Debbie Downer. I got to agree. Only now does it strike me as odd when the original O'Neill asks Harlan, Harlan, where you been? How does he know who Harlan is? Because the introduction was, as we saw at least, done when they were already copied, so I'm guessing they had a similar talk we didn't get to see. And considering how calm they are, he apparently told them, at least, that they would eventually be allowed to return home. It's very cute, though, that through it all, Teal'c mainly feels left out. And when Harlan tells him, I had to disintegrate you, all that gets is an, I see. I mean, speaking of cool as a cucumber, people, wow. He took that news very well. As the O'Neills are having a talk, separate from the rest, he really gives this great summary of the situation that the Daniels are just basically fascinated. The Carters are already arguing, yeah, and Teal'c feels left out. That is such a succinct, though very accurate, summation of the situation. And I, again, cannot help but laugh when the copy to O'Neill says, "You think you know how I feel?" to O'Neill. And never, not ever, has there ever been a truer moment than when the original O'Neill says, "Yeah," because, dude, literally, you are an exact copy. Except for the past like day or two. But up to that point, you share literally the exact same memories. So if anyone would ever fully, completely understand how you are feeling, he's that person. It sounded a little petulant, but at the same time, makes sense. I didn't mean it had to be said. Like, how would you feel if you got that news, right? In a beautiful, poignant summary of how O'Neill feels, it feels like somebody stole my life, which, in a way, yeah, that is exactly what happened. Again, they are not the originals. They can't go back to Earth. They are no longer human. And of course, being Stargate, they couldn't help but once again alleviate the situation by making a little quibby when he says that he was just trying to get his consciousness transferred back to his body. And the original O'Neill very dryly responds with, "It's occupied." I mean, on the one hand, it's like, how can you joke at a time like this? But at the same time, oh, thank you so much for joking at a time like this and making us laugh through an actual very deep, profound topic, but alleviating it with that Stargate magic once again to the point where we are actually also laughing through it. Yeah, I hadn't even thought of that, but the original O'Neill, of course, thinks of this angle, the security angle. O'Neill, the copied O'Neill, knows everything that he does, so he knows everything about the security of Earth. And their standard solution of burying the gate, I mean, sure, but then we kind of also have to take your word for it, and there would be no need for a bomb, he says. Because, yes, of course, O'Neill was thinking that. Because that was their solution to Abydos, right? At the beginning of the show, that's what they wanted to do to Abydos, to make sure that they really, really buried their gate, is to blow it the fuck up, because that's apparently what we do. When something scares us, we blow it up. But I could appreciate that that little moment was there as well between them, where it goes to show that really he does know how you think, because he thought of it, so you must have thought of it. But somehow, that security angle seems resolved. Now, personally, really thinking on it, I'm like, no fucking way. But apparently, somehow, they knew how to sell that back on Earth. That they didn't need to blow it up. That they weren't a threat. So, good on ya. In response to Harlan calling them and them both at the same time saying, oh, for crying out loud, the O'Neillisms of O'Neillisms. Thank you for adding that to this episode. Much appreciated. The perfect finishing touch to this moving scene. And then to round up the episode, O'Neill and Harlan have a little talk, where O'Neill says people aren't supposed to live forever. And usually, I fully agree with that. The fact that our lives are finite actually drives us to make something of our lives, to change, to grow, to strive towards something, I suppose. Time is limited. But again, it's Stargate magic, where Harlan just very airily responds with, yes, but if you would just try for a few 100 years, you might change your mind. And oh my god, just think of that. I mean, when people talk about vampires and such, if you could ever, be a fictional monster, whatever, I would always choose, well, in a non-supernatural world, the TV show. I would go for vampire because then, yes, you could live forever. Depending on which universe you're in, you can or cannot go out in the sun without dying, anyway. But I always thought that that would be amazing because of all the things that you could watch and read and experience. Life is just full of so many experiences and so many places to go and see and visit. And, not all of us have the capabilities or resources to do that in one lifetime. So that would appeal to me. But in the supernatural universe, I would pick something different. But that's a story for a whole other time. But that was a nice ending to this, though profound and can make you really think about certain things episode, yet also still light, Stargate magic funny. What did y'all think? Let us know. I'm really curious. And thus we wrap up the 19th episode of Stargate SG-1 Season 1. Although on Amazon Prime they say this was the 18th episode, but that's just because, for some reason, they shoved the first and the second part of Children of the Gods into one episode, which technically, yes, it was one episode, but in the way that the franchise ordered the episodes, they separated them into two distinct episodes, mainly because the episode was longer than 40 plus minutes. So therefore, to avoid any confusion, I named the title of the episode as well. So next up is the 20th episode of Stargate SG-1, beautifully named There But for the Grace of God. And strap in, people, because that is one fun episode. And once again, it's just the first season of this show, and that episode had me at the edge of my seat. So I'd love to see you back here for another rewatch and review party of Stargate franchise Season 1 Stargate SG-1. For additional reviews, come meet up with me, myself, and I. Drop a comment, give us a follow, and come share what y'all think. And to truly make this the all-inclusive podcast we set it out to be, come visit us in the RSS community where all our episodes come with a transcript. I hope to see you there.